effort they put in out there, staying ready. Just what does it say about the culture of this team when it does feel like every guy, no matter where they are on the lineup chart, kind of feels like they're involved and could get the call at some point?
Well, that starts long before the playoffs happen, or the scratching, unfortunately, that happens in the playoffs. And we have a history of it for last year. There were some pretty key guys that didn't get to play in Game 7, and they handled it incredibly well. I think the reason is the Barkovs of the world, the leadership group, that core group of guys, very inviting, very inclusive. So whether you're the 15th forward or you're the number 1 forward, wherever you fall in that pecking order, that depth chart, you're not made to feel like that in the room. You're made to feel like you're an important part of it. So the guys that we took out were the first guys you see when you come off the ice, right, in their suits, all high-fiving and excited. And I don't feel that that's a playoff thing. I feel that that's a part of who these guys are, how they treat each other.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on it, but the appreciation that the room did have for your fourth line last night, you see Brad giving no sec the game talk and all that, just to see that trickle down and just to see the outward expression of gratitude they have for them, just what that means for the group and for that line in particular.
I think it's a show of respect because we're all very aware of what those guys do when they're not in the lineup in terms of just the physical effort they put into staying ready, staying sharp, and they appreciate that. There's a respect there for those guys. And then they have something good happen for them, and it doesn't matter when, playoffs or not, but if a guy off your fourth line scores a goal, it's a big deal. That was a huge one for us last night. And it's such a wonderful part of what we do, a great personality in our room, really quiet, humble man that he's a protector for those guys all season too, so they love that.
The daily Brad question.
Okay.
There was a clip last night that went viral of Roberto going about 3.5 feet into the air out of his chair when Brad got the goal. If you had been told that that would be the reaction by Roberto Luongo to a Brad Marchand goal.
Roberto's a very, very bright man, he doesn't say a whole lot, but you listen every time he speaks. He's got a great understanding of how our room works. But I think the toughest job in hockey is the guys that are in management and they have to sit up top in a building, right? It's like the goalie coach, right? You're making every save. For Roberto, it's worse. He's got to watch the game and make every save, right? He's got the double tension in his. But there's a passion there. It's true of every team, right? We're all connected together, and they share that.
And it's not just Brad. I mean, the Leafs have a bunch of guys who have been through it. You have a bunch of guys who have been through it. How do hockey players stay so calm in that ultimate moment where it's overtime and you know that somebody's got a chance to be up 3-0 or down 3-0, and it just seems like these guys, to us anyway, it seems like it's a game on a Thursday in January. And we know it's not, but how do they stay in that
Probably
place?
Exhaustion, fatigue. It's... say if I went for a 10-mile run, but who's kidding who? If I take the stairs down, I'll look pretty calm. I feel a great appreciation for the separation between coaches and players. I'm not a player, and I don't have a history of playing, but they train for it. It's kind of what they do every single day at this level. And I'm talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Florida Panthers. They've trained their lives to be, and that they can focus on just where they're at. Because if they didn't have that ability in that moment, they wouldn't have had that ability when they're 14 or 15 to not watch TV and go work on their shot. They are a little different, these guys. They all have an ability to focus on something, I think, repetitive, especially at a young age. They can repetitively do something over and over again and enjoy it. And then by the time we get them and they've trained and they're 30 years old, they're just playing. The moment, the crowd, the noise is not part of what they process.
On your fourth line again, when you're inserting an entire line like that, just what about their style of play is different that you felt was maybe needed specifically last night?
Well, it started in the last month of the season. And Thomas had gone out when Sturm came in, Thomas went out of the lineup. AJ had played all the games, and Jonah was in and out of the lineup. But Sturm got injured. Thomas went back, and they went. And we had about a 10-game block where they were fantastic. And some nights they were our best line. It was the first time they really looked like they had a chemistry. But we added players at the deadline. And I never felt necessarily, I thought I had kind of, this is not a statement of the fourth line, but each one of the players that I was using on the fourth line, I really liked what they could do in a certain situation. It didn't necessarily translate to a line chemistry. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense to you, but I felt like it wasn't just bringing one in. If one of them was coming in, they were all coming in, so they could, and that would kind of, for them sitting on the bench, you know, it's not one, it's the three of them together. They played together, they've had success together. They're all fired up, right? Jonah gets his first. I mean, that's whatever it is. Gersley's third or fourth playoff game and Jonah's first. They'd all do that together. They would share that maybe nervousness that I'm sure they had before the game. They would share it together.
You talked last night about how it doesn't faze Sergei when he has a bad game or when his stats aren't what anyone would like. How do you see him when he does have a bad game or his game slips a little bit? How do you see him find that again? What does he do to get that back?
I don't think he loses it. I think it's just an off night. I don't think he has to go anywhere. He's just, I think when you're in your first 3 or 4 years in this league and you have a tough one, you're wondering if that's a change in direction. Oh no, it's going downhill for me, or I'm hot now. I think he's far beyond viewing the game as that. It's an individual night. The process is, he's so process driven that that's really all I think he focuses on. I think he and Robbie Tallis have just a fantastic relationship in that they're two very bright men. So they can talk to each other about that, and they built that idea of, there's just so much experience, and he's such a veteran pro that he can do it in the game. We have an unusual team at times this year where we would go long stretches and we wouldn't give a whole heck of a lot up. It was almost tougher for him this year, and then every NHL team's got good players. You get those flurries or breaks or great players on a breakaway. That's a bit of mental toughness that he had to, you know, I don't know if you develop, you continue to access instead of develop or improvement. To access that mental toughness, to sit through games, not get much, and then get a heater. So I think he's had a good year to prep him for playoffs this year.
Paul, I know you mentioned the impact that a Barkov can have on guys who are scratched and not playing just to keep them engaged, but what's your process as a coach with those players? Is it different than how you work with everyone else to keep them motivated?
It can be, if based on the personality type. So I've taken guys out of the lineup weren't very happy before in my career. Not here, actually. I mean, I've had, back in the day, there used to be the mindset your fourth line was usually older. There were no kids on your fourth line. Back when there were revocable waivers, right? That management, you lose 2 in a row, somebody went on waivers. Honest to God, right? And then they get claimed, and then you'd say, no, just kidding. But the idea was, you never make it easy on a coach to take you out of the lineup. So I have more than one exceptionally heated conversation after pulling a guy out. That game has changed, right? And then I guess you don't try to start your relationship with a player in the playoffs where hey, I got to take you out. I've had some tough ones. Taking Nick Cousins out of the lineup last year was very, very difficult for me. Because he played so hard and battled so hard. We needed a different structure. And that one was probably, he handled that so well. Much different than would have been handled 30 years ago. He handled that so very, very well. You just try to have enough of a relationship with him at the end. And I guess I would say I deliver the hard news first. You're out tonight. In the playoffs, I'm not going through the long list of the reasons that you're out. right? That would be the difference. I would tell a guy in the regular season, look, these last 3 games we've talked about, I need more here, more. Or it's just, hey, I want a different look on my fourth line. So I don't take them through. There's no failure in the past. We've already done the video that we have to say, you're coming out tonight. That's it.
Paul, as you mentioned, the top guys are always they're always going to get their looks.
Yeah.
Matthews hasn't scored yet in this series. What have you liked, I guess, about how your team's approached him to keep a pretty darn good scorer from getting on the board yet?
I just feel the same way that I feel about Barkov. Or, we've got 2 other guys. Let's say Reinhart instead. Whether a guy scores or not sometimes is either a great save or a little bit of a block or a bit of a deflection. Their game can almost be identical to the nights that they are scoring. It's just sometimes it goes in for them. And I would say that's different than a guy on the fourth line, where you'd say sometimes it goes in for him. Well, that's happenstance. The guys who score in the 50s or 60s, they're getting their looks. They're getting the same shots. Rhino's had a bunch he's missed. Austin Matthews, I feel the same way. When I watch the video, he's got the puck on his stick. I'm not feeling very good about it behind the bench. It doesn't go. I feel a lot better about it. It's just the opposite emotions with Sam Reinhart. He cracked that bar last night on the power play. They're playing the same game. It's inevitable for both players. They're both going to score.
Coach, 2-1 obviously looks a lot different than 2-0. We talked about drawing on experience the other day. Does it help that so many of the guys in that room were on this team last year when you guys were down 2-1 to the Rangers, just the experience being so recent?
Yeah, it should. But every playoff series is different. It's got a different feel. And I'm not a big believer in momentum, or we would have lost that game 60-0 based on the first minute last night, right? So 4 or 5 minutes in, it looked like we might lose it 30-0. So I'm not a big believer in that. I do feel that in that game, the pressure is on our team. Because at 3-0, you feel differently today. We're having a whole different set of conversations. And just on one win, 1 loss. So now I think that goes back to being flat on both teams. I don't think there's a pressure advantage for either team in Game 4.
Well, the game is obviously generational. It's not uncommon to see sons playing the game that their fathers were elite at.
Mm-hmm.
And even in your own family. I mean, Jake's in the game.
Yep.
Why do we see so much of this in hockey? And have you ever talked to Matthew about what it's like to wear that name? Knowing, I mean, he's obviously a star in his own right, but
No.
it had to be difficult for him at one point in his life, I would think, to have that expectation. How do guys deal with that?
I don't know that idea, and part of it is I never played, and neither did my kids. So we had to find the first answer is there's lots of different ways to love this game, and you don't have to be a player. I think it's probably more difficult for a young man to follow his father when he was a star. I think that's got a whole set of challenges, and you have to be elite at your game. I don't think that you get a benefit from it early on. I do think in Matthew's case that his dad and his mom did a wonderful job making them a part of the NHL life, but never grasping on to all of the potentially negative things about having a star father or being around a high-profile life. They're just salt of the earth people. And I say that specifically, not generally, but specifically in how he treats the people that I see him interact with, the guys like me, right? Addie, the people that work on our planes, our bus drivers, the ticket people. He's just wonderfully giving. But I think there's lots of different ways to love the game. I think my son Jake might love the game more than I do, and has since he was 15 or 16. So, I mean, hopefully you all love the game too. That you haven't come to hate us too much for our dumbass answers when he asked a completely intelligent question and we scoffed and scowled. There's lots of different ways to love the game.
What did it mean to you when Jake said, I want to do part of, this is my career path? What did that ultimately mean?
Get a good suitcase was the first piece of advice, and you're going to go through more than one if you're lucky. And for me, I look at it completely different. It's just what a wonderful bridge to have a connection to your son. So they're up 2-1 in their series. They had that incredible run in the first round. I'm listening to them. Overtime games they're winning. So you get like a 15-minute block after the game when he can, where he's wired, right? Just as I would be after a game, and I get to talk to my kid like that, and I understand what he's talking about. So that's just, for me, I mean, he has aspirations to be in the NHL. I have aspirations that he lives a good and happy life, and that, you know, my mom and dad are in their mid-80s and they watch every game. I'm hoping to be in the exact same situation in about 30 years, listening to every game, if I'm lucky. Okay.